First up, in a tragic turn of events, freezing rain and unexpected snowfall have claimed the lives of at least 35 people in remote areas of Pakistan. And according to the disaster management authorities there, among the victims are 22 children who have lost their lives after being crushed in landslides. They were buried and stuck in their homes. The extreme weather, which is highly unusual for March in Pakistan, has wreaked havoc in the northern and the western regions, causing road closures and damaging hundreds of houses. To make matters worse, heavy rains have left another trail of destruction. They have destroyed at least 150 houses and partially damaged 500 others, mainly in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan province. Some districts are facing complete electricity cutoffs that have persisted for several days.
The electricity and telephone lines have been disrupted. Today the power has been restored, but still it is coming and going. We have been here without electricity, water and everything else for the last 6 days.
Responding to the crisis, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's provincial government has provided relief supplies to affected areas. It has announced financial assistance for the injured and the families of those who lost their lives. The Chief Meteorological Department chief has said that Pakistan's Met Department has attributed these abnormal conditions to climate change. He has also emphasized the rarity of the continuous snowfall lasting over 30 minutes.
Now, due to climate change, the frequency of extreme weather incidents has increased, so our infrastructure has become more vulnerable. Hence, we need climate-resilient infrastructure, good early warning system, and increased awareness among the people. Only then can they adopt better ways to protect themselves.
Around 33 million people have been affected by floods from record monsoon rains in Pakistan. This along with a tremendous glacial melt in the country's mountainous north, which has killed over 1,700 people and destroyed homes, roads, railroads, bridges, livestock and crop in damage estimated to be $30 billion in 2022. While in a groundbreaking study led by researchers at the University of East Anglia, alarming findings have revealed that approximately 90% of the Himalayan region faces the threat of enduring drought for over a year. This if global warming increases by 3 degrees Celsius. The report, which was published in the journal Climatic Change, emphasized the critical impact of adhering to the Paris Agreement's temperature goals. The study, which focused on India, Brazil, China, Egypt, Ethiopia and Ghana, has highlighted the escalating risk associated with each additional degree of global warming, from droughts and floods to declines in crop yields and loss of biodiversity. The consequences have been dire. Notably, the study pinpoints that in India, pollination has reduced by half at 3 to 4 degrees of global warming compared to reduction by a quarter at 1.5 degrees, and therefore limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees has allowed for a refuge of biodiversity in half of the country. However, agricultural land is facing severe threat. Over 50% of the land has been projected to experience droughts lasting more than a year under 3 degrees Celsius warming. However, adhering to the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit would substantially reduce the risk by 21% to 61% and lessen economic damages due to flooding. While the focus of the research is on 6 countries, the researchers are continuing to stress upon the fact that other nations are likely to face similar challenges. They have called for heightened emphasis on both climate change mitigation and adaptation to protect both human and natural systems. The researchers have also highlighted the importance of restoring ecosystems to combat climate change effects and absorb carbon from the atmosphere. They think that this approach will benefit both the environment and the natural capital. Well, a new report by the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization has discovered that climate change disproportionately affects incomes of rural women, people living in poverty and older populations. The study analyzed socioeconomic data from over 100,000 rural households, representing more than 950 million people across 24 low to middle income countries. The data was further cross-referenced with over 70 years of geo-referenced temperature and daily precipitation data, and according to the findings, the impact for women differs not just by gender but also by socioeconomic status, heat stress and exposure to flooding conditions. Barriers such as access to resources, services and employment opportunities affects most rural groups' capacities to adapt to and to cope with climate change. These include discriminatory norms and policies that place a disproportionate burden on women for care and domestic responsibilities. These also limit female farm rights to land, their labor autonomy, and hamper their access to information, finance, technology and other essential services. It was noted by the UN body that younger agrarian families tend to fare better due to easier access to off-farm employment. The study further found that rural climate vulnerabilities are barely visible in most national climate action plans. Of over 4,000 plans from 24 countries analyzed, only 6% mentioned measures for women and only 2% explicitly included measures for youth. Moreover, less than 1% of the propositions included any mention of poor. Now, Chu Dongju, who is the Director General for the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, has urged nations to revise their climate action plans and manifestos. Referring to the reports of the finding, Dongju highlights the urgent need to allot more resources and direct policy attention to address issues of these groups, which remain the most vulnerable in face of worsening climate conditions. Well, an ice-free Arctic might be just a few years away. Yes, you heard that right. Researchers have now warned that this grim milestone could arrive earlier than expected and will have severe consequences on the environment, even if the world manages to slash carbon emissions. An ice-free Arctic pole will be disastrous for the world. Take a look.
A frozen desert holding approximately 70% of the world's freshwater ice may be gone sooner than expected. A new study done by researchers at the University of Colorado have warned that the Arctic Circle could become ice-free in the 2030s. The findings, published in the journal Nature Reviews Earth Environment, are based on analysis of existing climate data. The data suggests ice-free conditions in the Arctic could arrive 10 years earlier than expected, using previous models. Moreover, this would happen in all emission scenarios. This means even if the world manages to slash carbon emissions, an ice-free Arctic is inevitable. The region is heating around 4 times faster than the rest of the globe.
Ice-free conditions could occur as early as the 2020s and 2030s, but it could also be just in the 2040s, depending on how this atmospheric these atmospheric patterns evolve.
Under the high emission scenario, the findings predict the Arctic could be free of ice for up to 9 months a year, even in some winter months. If global warming exceeds 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, ice-free conditions would likely reoccur every 2 or 3 years or almost every year. Although it must be noted that for scientists, ice-free does not mean zero ice. Some ice in the Arctic region is extremely durable. On the other hand, the Arctic Ocean will be left with less than 1 million square kilometers of ice on the coastline. In recent years, the Arctic Ocean had around 3.3 million square kilometers of sea ice at its minimum in September. Other than being a big indicator of climate change, Arctic ice is very important for the survival of animals like polar bears and seals. It also plays an important role in reflecting both radiation and heat away from the Earth. This means its loss could accelerate global warming as well. However, despite these daunting projections, there is a silver lining to this report. The research says Arctic sea ice has the capacity to recover quickly with atmospheric cooling.
We see that in the probabilities of ice-free conditions in the Arctic, that they peak in mid-century, and then as it cools, the probability goes way down. And so eventually, under that kind of scenario where it cools down again, an ice-free Arctic could become a thing of the past again, and the Arctic could be covered year-round by ice again and be a white Arctic once again if we cool down the temperatures. And so sea ice is not something that is what we call like tipping point. Sea ice will come back if temperatures come down, but it goes away when temperatures go up.
Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Well, strong blizzard conditions have battered the state of California. Heavy snow has been dumped on the mountain ridges and the valleys. Towns along the California-Nevada border in the U.S. were hit with heavy snow over the weekend, closing a major highway into Nevada as forecasters warned of a high risk of avalanches. Our next report gets you the details of this. Well, let's shift our focus to Brazil, where heavy floods have affected over 100,000 people in the northwestern state of Acre, and over 12,000 people have been displaced in the state after heavy flooding hit the region following several days of torrential rains. Following a week of rainstorm, the embankment of the Acre River were breached as water levels rose. The state capital, Rio, has one of the areas most severely impacted by the flooding. The level of the river had reached 17.84 meters in the capital on Tuesday. So far, 19 of the 22 municipalities are in an emergency due to the floods. During a visit to the affected areas with Environment Minister Marina Silva, the Integration and Regional Development Minister said there's approximately $4,800 million assigned for regional humanitarian aid here.
For humanitarian aid, for food, water, fuel, there are approximately 23-24 million rias. In the end, it will be close to 30 million rias in humanitarian aid.
A fire department facility in Rio Branco was transformed into a makeshift command center for the ongoing search and rescue operations. Personnel from the fire department and civil defense had been stationed in the center for where they collaborated to perform vital rescue and evacuation tasks. The majority of the houses that were evacuated in the last 3 days were moved to temporary settlements that the municipal authority has established.
We were all present during the flood peak. The water levels of the river were rising rapidly. Everyone there was to help with the evacuation and rescue operations. There were 420 people, including soldiers and officers.
Well, the 2023-24 El Nino has peaked as one of the 5 strongest weather phenomenon on record. Even if it is currently waning slightly, it is still expected to have an impact on the climate in the upcoming months. This by storing more heat in the atmosphere caused by greenhouse gases released by human activity. Our next report gets you more on this.
The 2023-2024 El Nino weather pattern is weakening, but it will continue to fuel higher temperatures globally. That's according to the World Meteorological Organization, which said it was one of the 5 strongest in history.
What we've seen with this El Nino, perhaps more than any other event in the past, is that it's fueled the heat trapped by greenhouse gases due to, as we all know, from human activities. El Nino is a naturally occurring event. but everything now, all El Nino events, all La Nina events, take place in the context of a climate which has been radically changed by human activities.
El Nino, which is a natural weather phenomena, is linked to a change in wind patterns and higher ocean surface temperatures in the eastern and central Pacific. Extreme weather events like wildfires, tropical cyclones, and protracted droughts can be triggered by El Nino. The phenomena happens on an average every 2 to 7 years and usually lasts 9 to 12 months, provoking extreme weather events. The WMO warns that El Nino alone is not responsible for climate change.
Every month since June 2023 has set a new monthly temperature record, and 2023 was by far the hottest year on record. El Nino has contributed to these temperatures, but heat-trapping greenhouse gases are unequivocally the main culprit.
Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Well, that's all we have on Climate Tracker, but more news as well.